Hello, this is Brenda Green from Living in the Go. I'd like to welcome you to our third presentation, and the title is called Should You Buy a House? So if you're getting ready to buy your first home, if you're thinking about it, if you're saving for it now, then this is a presentation for you. Hopefully the information that I'm going to give you will be helpful for you as you make that decision, as you think about what you can and can't do in terms of home ownership, and just being more informed. So let's get started. The topics I want to cover today are: why are you buying a house? Do you know what you can afford? Do your homework. In other words, investigate. Make sure you know all of the things that are required in order to buy a home. And what does home ownership mean to you? So, why buy a home? I know when I started thinking about buying my first home, I was growing up with the American dream in mind, and that included buying a home. My dream was to buy that starter home, a house that maybe needed some repairs or whatever. Then I was going to go right into that mid-sized home that was a little more fully furnished, fully decorated, just wonderful to raise children in. And then that final retirement home, I was going to build from the ground up. I was going to make sure it was specifically tailored to my needs. Well, the dream changed slightly right after the mid-sized home and a divorce. So I didn't build that third home. Instead, I bought a condo that was already fully functional and ready to go, and it met my needs. I did pass on that house philosophy to my children. So when they left my home, they moved into their own condos. I felt that sense of pride because I felt I had set the right example for my children. Well, a lot has happened over the years, and the housing market, along with the economy, has changed many people's thinking about home ownership, including my own. Property values dropped, homes went into foreclosure, and people lost everything. So I don't want that to be your reality. I want you to do a lot of thinking about buying a home so that you can make the right decisions. So right now, interest rates are very low still. There are a lot of good programs available for first-time home buyers. There are still some tax advantages. The tax cut that Congress passed still allows you to be able to take off some of the tax deductions, but they have been limited. But there are still advantages to be had. And you're paying more for rent than mortgage, well, then you should look at that. If your rent is extremely high and you could find a mortgage that's less, then that might be a reason to buy a home. Maybe you have a family now, and so the apartment that you're living in is overcrowded. That might be also a reason to go ahead and buy a home. So what can you afford really? There are a lot of things to consider with home ownership and your readiness for this responsibility. If you say yes to the things that I'm going to ask you, then it's a go. So do you have 20% to use as a down payment? You don't want to have to pay private mortgage insurance to the lender. PMI, as it's called, covers the bank if you default on the loan. So that's additional money that you have to pay on top of your mortgage and property taxes. It doesn't go towards the principal of your house. It's just money you pay like an insurance. But the insurance is not for you, it's for the bank. Will the cost of your mortgage payment, property taxes, and utilities be 35% or less of your take-home pay? And that's your check after they take all the taxes out. That's take-home. If the percentage is higher than 35%, then you might want to reconsider the cost of that loan. Do you have an emergency fund to tap if the furnace goes out in January? I say this because it actually happened to me in the mid-sized house. It was one of the coldest days of the year. The furnace went out. It was terrible. And so if I didn't have any money saved, I would have had to pay that on a credit card, which is so not good. Is your credit score in good shape so that you can get a low interest loan? If your credit score is not 650 or above, they'll charge you a higher interest rate. It doesn't mean you can't get a house, but you'll be paying a lot for it. So you want to make sure your credit score is in good shape. You want to check it before you even start looking for the house. Do you like doing maintenance or repairs? Because you have to keep the property values up. So if you don't like cutting the grass or keeping the house painted, the trim, making sure the windows work, taking the garbage out even, all of that, that's maintenance. Will you stay in the house at least 5 years? Because if you're moving every couple of years, then buying a home may not be the right choice for you. Maybe renting instead. Are the places that you're looking, do they have a great school district? Because if you have children, you want to make sure that you are in a place where the kids can go to school. You're not paying additional costs to put them in private school because the schools aren't the best that they could be. And it also helps when you get ready to sell the house if you're in a good school district. It's a great feature that you can advertise when you go to sell your home. That resale is also important. So if you said yes to 5 or 6 of the things that I asked, then you're fine. Go ahead, buy that home. But if you said no, then renting might be the best thing for you. It certainly depends on your lifestyle. And so there is no shame in selling your home to downsize or to have less financial stress. It's sometimes nice to rent and make that phone call to maintenance and have all your repairs handled by the landlord. It depends on what you want. So I mentioned earlier, do your homework. That means having financial knowledge before you start thinking about buying a home. So the research is so important because you need to be prepared. Do you know your credit score? You should know that before you start looking for a house. You can use a site called Credit Karma, and that's Credit Karma, Karma. You could check your score for free. If there are any issues in your credit, you could get those corrected before you even start looking. So that's important. You need to also understand what loan products are available for you. You've certainly heard about fixed rate loans, hopefully. That's a 30-year term, which is that you pay monthly for 30 years. That's the life of the loan. Or a 15-year term. Again, you pay for 15 years each month for the life of the loan. A 15-year, you would pay less interest. You pay the house off quicker. The house is yours so much faster. There are also variable rate loans. So let's say you're just starting out, you get a modest home, and you know later on that you're going to be making more money. Your income is going to increase. But right now, let's say you're making $35,000 a year. So with that money, maybe you do a variable loan where you start out with a very low interest rate, and then maybe after 5 years, the interest rate goes up, depending on what the market is doing at that time. At that time, you would figure maybe I can afford more for the loan, or you might even be selling. But in either case, you get into the market and you don't have to put as much down. So understand what the variable loans are. Understand those fully when you're talking to the loan officer and make the right decision for yourself. There are also veterans loans. They're called VA loans. So if you're actively in the military, or if you're a veteran, if you've been out for a few years, there are products specifically designed for you to give you an advantage when you go to buy a home. So you want to make sure that you give that information to your loan officer as well. You also need to figure out how much house you can afford, because you want to be comfortable. So do the calculations, figure out what that's going to look like in terms of payments. They will help you and guide you with that information, but look at it on your own too. You need to know your debt ratio. So you need to know how many credit cards, what the debt is for that, any personal loans, car loans. Figure out all of that. That's your debt ratio. That will help you determine how much house you can afford. You also need to start saving for a down payment. And the down payment should be after other accounts are in place. So if you don't have an emergency fund, if you haven't started your retirement fund, then you're not ready to do the down payment for the loan. Make sure those other accounts are in place, then start saving for that house. So I want to give you some things that I think about in terms of buying homes. So these are Brenda's beliefs. You can listen to these things, you can take them with a grain of salt, you can put them aside for another time when it's more applicable to what you're doing. But again, my thoughts. You could always buy a house when the time is right. Don't let family, bankers, friends, or anyone rush this decision for you. They don't know what you know about you. If you're not feeling comfortable, then don't do it. Be ready for the emergency. Jobs come and go, so you know what you can do to keep your house if this happens. If you get laid off tomorrow and you can't cover the mortgage for the next month, then you're not ready. Term life insurance is a must to at least pay the house off. I'm always talking about insurance, but at the very least, have enough. If you don't have enough for your overall expenses, have enough at least to pay off the house. Don't burden someone with that cost if you don't have to. If you have to stop living to buy a house, then you aren't ready. Macaroni and cheese every night will get old. Look at what the numbers tell you that you can afford and buy less house. The mortgage broker will tell you that you can afford X, but don't fall for the hype. So if the numbers come out and it says that you can afford a house that costs maybe $250,000, but your comfort level would be more at $200,000, then by all means buy the house for $200,000. You'll sleep better at night and you won't be eating macaroni and cheese every night. Figure out what a mortgage payment would look like and see if you can handle it for 3 months. So look at the numbers and then actually put that money aside each month in your account to see if you can actually cover that mortgage, the interest, the property tax, the insurance, and the utilities. If you can't do that, then you don't have enough to cover the mortgage. You can't prepare for everything, but be prepared for some things. So in summary, understand what owning a home means. Do your homework. Know what mortgage products are available for you. Know what your credit score is. Know what you can afford. Understand what's on your credit history. Make sure that you know all that information before you go to buy a house. Break down the total cost into monthly amounts that you have to pay and feel comfortable with that. And the last thing, feel proud of your informed decisions. An informed consumer is the best consumer. As always, I'd like to thank you for your time and your attention. And again, I hope there was something useful in this presentation for you. So thanks, and have a wonderful day.